Good evening, my friends. Are you here for another spooky story? Then come on in. Settle in now. For tonight, I have quite the tale to tell. Are you ready? Good. Then let us begin. Most animals have an innate sense when it comes to danger. Predators and prey both have to constantly adapt to outsmart the other, to lower their instincts in order to grab that elusive meal, or avoid becoming one. We humans, too, have instincts. As children, without the knowledge and experience of adults, that is often all we have in the face of this wide and dangerous world. As adults, we often try to reason, using logic in order to avoid a misunderstanding. We like believing in the good in people, of obtaining that perfect job or legendary romance, and we sometimes ignore the red flags on the slim hope of obtaining what we seek. We don't want to be the rude one to someone who is just being awkward or ask for help, do we? Fortunately, not all of us are willing to turn a blind eye to our instincts long enough to become the latest face plastered on a post office poster board for missing persons. So let's take a look at a couple of instances of why it's good to follow your instincts with tonight's story. Instincts. It started one morning when I woke up to ready myself for school. I was in 6th grade. At the time, I had a friend who was in a good portion of my classes. She was a sweet girl, very creative, and loved many of the same things I did. It was hard to find a fellow geeky girl in my little backwoods school at the time, so I gravitated toward anyone who expressed even an iota of similar inclinations. I cannot remember what the reason was exactly, but my friend asked to borrow a necklace from me. I think she wanted something to wear for school picture day. I didn't wear a lot of jewelry, but I did receive a few necklaces here and there as birthday or Christmas presents. This friend, whom we'll call Kelly, didn't have much, so I didn't see any reason not to loan her one. But the next day, as soon as my feet hit the floor as I rolled out of bed, I got this horrible sinking feeling that whatever I loaned her, I would lose. It was really strange because I had never had such a feeling before in my life. However, I did recall the stories I had heard from my mother and grandmother about how paying attention to bad feelings had helped them out, and how not listening to them usually led to trouble. Still, Kelly was my friend. She was expecting me to uphold my promise, and she always returned books and pencils and other such things that I had loaned her. Why would a silly necklace be any different? Well, I decided I would do an experiment, just to see if the feeling meant anything. I took my time that morning, choosing the least favorite necklace in the bunch, a gold-plated necklace with a heart that was made up of tiny pink cubic zirconia crystals. The only reason I even had it was the person who gave it to me thought girl equated to all things pink, my least favorite color. To be honest, I would have happily given it to Kelly if she had wanted it. With my catalyst in hand, I headed off to school. All the while, that strong feeling nagged at me, telling me that I shouldn't do it, that it wasn't too late to just fib and say I forgot about it. I brushed the bad vibes aside and met up with Kelly, handing her the necklace as promised. She, of course, was elated and wore it the whole day. Since I wasn't very into jewelry, I didn't understand why wearing a little Walmart necklace would make her so happy, but more power to her, I figured. Fast forward to the next Monday. Kelly had been out for a couple of days and the weekend had passed, so I didn't think anything of it. We were kids, and all of us got sick or had family problems where we were out a day or two, so it wasn't a big deal. However, When Kelly came into school, I noticed she chose to sit with some of her other friends in another part of the cafeteria before classes started. Even during our first few classes, she still seemed to be avoiding me. Finally, I got tired of it and moseyed over to ask her how she was. She answered normally, but never brought up the necklace, which I saw she was no longer wearing. I let it go, waiting for her to bring it up, but she never did. As the end of our last class the day neared, I finally asked her where my necklace was. Kelly seemed troubled. She wouldn't really look me in the eye, and I had to ask her a couple of times because the first time, she acted like she didn't hear me. Finally, still looking down at the floor, she apologized and told me she had lost it. The realization that washed over me with her words felt relieving. My gut feeling had been right. Instantly, I didn't believe Kelly, but I didn't push the matter much afterwards. I did talk to a few of our mutual friends who hung out with her outside of school, and I got a feeling from the way they talk that maybe her brother or uncle had taken it from her, because Kelly just wasn't the sort to steal anything. I learned later that Kelly had a pretty messed up family and was going through a lot, so I really feel one of her relatives stole the necklace and pawned it in hopes of getting money for drugs. They were an idiot if they did, because nobody would have paid more than $15 for a cheap thing like that. I did keep an eye out in case Kelly had kept it and lied, but she never wore it to school, so I assume she didn't really want to tell me what happened. It was just a cheap necklace, and I didn't even want it, so I forgave her. I never loaned her anything else, but I also didn't hang out with her much after that. I heard she grew up and got out of that problematic household, so regardless of what really happened to the necklace, I'm glad she turned out well in the end. The incident with Kelly actually had a silver lining. I learned that I did have the good instincts my granny has. Of course, there's been times I've been an idiot over the years and went against some of the minor ones and, predictably, was disappointed by the results. But sometimes, there have been feelings that are so sobering I just couldn't shake them. Here's an example. One night, I was spending the night at my granny's. Papa and his farmer buddies were away at a cattle auction and would not be back until late, so that meant we wound up staying up late, telling stories and watching TV. However, once it got dark, I distinctly remember walking into the kitchen and feeling eyes on me. Now, I've had plenty of animals and been on farms and played in the woods for a good portion of my life. This did not feel like a dog or a cow watching me. It was strange, like feeling like there was a big circle between my shoulders. I kept shrugging my shoulders in order to literally shake the feeling off, because it was uncomfortable. I walked into the living room where my grandmother was, turned off the TV, and promptly announced that I felt like we were being watched. Now, this was before drugs had gotten really bad in the vicinity, and even with a few break-ins here and there, some people still left their doors and windows unlocked. Since my granny had already had relatives that had been robbed, and had had her own close encounters years before, she liked to keep things locked up when it got dark if she wasn't nearby. So up Granny gets, and we start walking through the house, checking doors and windows. She checks half the house, I check the other half. Everything was secure. However, that feeling still hadn't left by the time Granny came back, and I was nearly about to take a chair and slide it up under the knob of the nearest door when I felt something. I can't quite describe it, but when I looked down the darkened hallway to the portion of the house Granny had checked, something compelled me to walk down it. I asked Granny if she was sure she had checked everything, and she said yes. I then asked her if she had checked the bathroom she came through. She hadn't. thinking I had. Immediately, we both made our way to the bathroom and I flicked on the light. The bathroom window was wide open. Now, Granny doesn't have the biggest window in that bathroom, but a slim and determined adult could very much fit through if they found a ladder or something else to stand on behind the house. As we stood there, I felt the cold night air wafting in through the screen, with the night obscuring anything beyond the window. I looked at Granny. When had she opened that? Apparently, much earlier during the day, but she had forgotten all about it. I walked over to it and looked. The window at the time had a screen that could be easily popped out and put back into place, and I had, more than once, been pushed through said window by my granny when she had accidentally locked herself out. However, the window itself had some big sturdy locks on it because the screen was so easy to remove, so I immediately shoved it shut and locked it tightly. Instantly, I felt so much better. The feeling, however, still stayed somewhat, leading me to pull the curtains closed in every other room. Granny, realizing I had felt something, was even fine with me covering up the kitchen window with a towel since she didn't have the curtains that covered the whole window at the time. We sat in the living room after that, and I noticed that Granny kept the phone with her until Papa and his buddies got back an hour later. The feelings slowly started to subside after we found the open window, and laughed at some point while Papa's friends were hanging out on the porch. I'm not sure what it was that I felt watching us, but that was the last time I ever felt such an eerie presence in that house like that. Well, my friends, did you enjoy this story? Have you ever had your instincts tell you something was up before you knew what it was? Have you ever gone against them? Tell me what happened in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can catch your latest spooky fix the moment it comes out. And check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/Phantasmal Poppy. Good night, and see you all real soon.